Hello everyone, it's Molly here from Your Future Forward, and I'm so excited to bring you this brand new series called the Apprentice Diaries. It's completely dedicated to apprentices in celebration of National Apprenticeship Week, and it's full of conversations with loads of different guests from top firms and top companies to give you an insight into what it's really like to be an apprentice. Don't forget to leave a review on Apple Podcasts if you do enjoy them. That would really help us reach more people and help more people that are considering apprenticeships. So it's massively appreciated from our side. But for now, enjoy the episode. Today we're talking all things Google, and as some of you might know, now I'm an ex-Google apprentice, seeing as our last day when we're filming this was yesterday, but I'm joined with a really good friend of mine and ex-housemate, believe it or not, Jake, and we studied the same digital marketing level 3 apprenticeship, but we were placed in different teams and we kind of had different journeys to find in the apprenticeship. So I thought it'd just be good to get you on the podcast, chat about our different experiences so the listeners can kind of get a feel for two different perspectives, I guess. So if you want to introduce yourself and kind of what team you were placed in, and I guess just go into that first.
The ex-housemate made me laugh because I felt like I was in Big Brother for a sec, to be honest. But yeah, so I'm Jake. I'm a 21-year-old apprentice, or ex-apprentice now. Like Molly just said, we finished yesterday. And I was actually placed at Google in the UK ads marketing team. So that's all sort of like the marketing and advertising that Google does from like a business to business perspective. So basically I was specifically working on like Google search and advertising that, to bigger brands and agencies that work on search. So a lot of my role sort of was very vast. But I guess we can get into that more as Molly starts asking the questions. I don't want to give it all away at the start.
Yeah, just tease at the beginning. But yeah, I guess before we go into roles and kind of what we actually did at Google, how did you end up at Google? How did you find the apprenticeship, and what was sort of your experience before this? Because how old were you? You must have been 20 when you joined, right? Or maybe 19?
Yeah, so I got the job when I was 19, but obviously didn't start till I was 20.
Okay.
So basically, how I found the job was when I turned 18, right? I did a gap year from uni, supposedly. And I was trying to like figure stuff out. I kind of knew that I never really wanted to do uni, to be honest, anyway. So I took a gap year or whatever, and I actually ended up getting a job at an agency that is owned 50% by Jaguar Land Rover. So they literally do all of Jaguar Land Rover's marketing, like and stuff like that. And I was a very junior role there, working on sort of content management and things like that. And I kind of just randomly got that because I was speaking to my mum's friend who works at Jaguar Land Rover, and she was like, "Oh, just talking to me about it." And then I found a connection over there, and then actually at the time a random job role had came up, and I went and interviewed. I did like an assessment centre and an interview.
Okay.
And I got really lucky. I mean, I was like, everyone else that was interviewing for this job was like 23 plus.
Really?
And here's me. Yeah, it was like 22, 23 plus, like minimal. And here's me, like little 18-year-old Jake, like waltzing through in a blazer
straight out
and
of
a
school
white t-shirt
in his dad's suit.
Yeah, literally. And like, yeah, I'm not going to use the word got lucky, but that's kind of how it felt at the time.
Yeah.
So yeah, I ended up getting it, and then I started that role, and I did that for about 8 months before realizing that I really didn't like what I was doing. And also my contract was only just over a year there before they reanalyze it, and if there's budget, you go again. So one day I was on my lunch break, which I highly recommend probably not doing this at work, but
looking at other jobs.
I was looking for other jobs, and I wasn't even specifically looking for apprenticeship roles. I was looking for like full-time roles, and at the time I worked in Birmingham, so I was looking at a lot of Birmingham-based roles. I hadn't even thought about really moving to London, to be honest. Like, I'll be honest, at that time I was very much party boy, like being a bit reckless, like no care in the world for career progression. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, and then literally I randomly came across this website, and and it was an apprenticeship specific one, but it was like degree apprenticeships and a mixture of that. I can't remember the name of the site. It's really escaped my mind right now. And yeah, I ended up going on there, and I actually applied for a few different apprenticeships. There was an Aston Martin one that I applied for, which I actually got through to the last round, and then they cancelled the program, which I was gutted about.
Oh.
Yeah, but this was pre-finding the Google one, so
yeah,
like,
so it all worked out.
I'd already gone through all the rounds. Yeah, it all worked out. So I ended up applying, for like Nestle, loads of these kind of things. And then I found this Google one, and when I clicked the link, I remember the form which looked really dodgy. Like, it looked super dodgy. Like, it didn't even look proper. I remember looking at it, like, this has got to be like, this can't be
surely
real
not.
or whatever.
Fake news.
Yeah, surely not. So yeah, fake news. So I applied, and then kept going on with my day job, whatever. And then I ended up getting to the end of my contract, and I got extended for an extra month. But they just couldn't have enough budget to keep me on, like, full. So like, they just, like, Jaguar Land Rover was going through quite a bad financial time at that present day. And so then it comes around, and I'm like, so bearing in mind this is the September I applied, and we're going in like February, March time. I've heard nothing. I've completely forgot I've even applied for the Google job. And then I randomly, I've been jobless like a week and a half, maybe. I'm like sat on my sofa watching TV, which is not proactive.
Daytime TV, the chase, pointless. Nice.
Yeah, I definitely should have been looking at jobs, but I think I just wasn't having it that day. And I got a call and it was like, hey, this is the blah blah from Google. And they're like, what? I was like really confused. And then I remembered all them months ago that like I'd applied, and then yeah, she like I had like 1 or 2 phone interviews, and then I got invited to the assessment center. Yeah. At Google, and then from there it's kind of like history, and now here we are.
Yeah, I think that's so important as well for people to know. And I think it varies across apprenticeships, but these processes can take a long time sometimes. And, I guess like a span over the year from the date we applied to actually joining the company, it was probably about a year. And also just going back to, you mentioned that you weren't necessarily looking for apprenticeships proactively. You just kind of stumbled across them. What made you actually want to apply? Like, what was your perception of apprenticeships? Did your friends do them? What did your parents think? Like, did you have any influences as to why you went forward and applied for them?
I think at that time, like, a lot of my friends were at university. Like, my friendship group was very 50-50. With it, half people like full-time, like the other half were like uni. And I was just I remember at that time thinking, like, I'm going to come out of this with like, no, I've not got a degree right now. I've had, like I've had a year experience, but it's not been like the best role in terms of people being looking at my CV, like, oh, this guy's done some crazy stuff. Yeah. And I was like, I need something that's really going to set me apart, like, from everybody else. And I need something that's like really like tangible on my CV. And as into the fact I don't know, I need to shine in a way. It sounds a bit cringy, but I needed something that was going to be a bit of shiny, really. So
were you looking specifically for big brands, big names?
Yeah, this was the thing. I was looking specifically at big companies, because there was definitely a few on there, and a few opportunities that I found that were at smaller companies and smaller agencies near where I lived, and things like that. But I needed a big hitter, is what I'm going to call it. And at least that was how I was feeling at the time. So that was kind of what my driving thing was. I needed like a big company to have on there,
Yeah, I get that. And I think, being at Google now and having gone through it, no one even wants to know what job you have done at Google. They just hear the name, they think, oh, that's cool, you must be smart. So it is beneficial. And I guess like my route, so mine was slightly different to Jake's. I came straight out of school from doing my A-levels. I planned to go to university, probably to study a similar thing in marketing or business. But yeah, I felt like I had a bit more potential, and same sort of thing as you, Jake. Like, I just wanted something that made me stand out a bit, and I just felt I'd get lost. If I was at university, I could just be another number. Everyone's got a degree nowadays, and our parents were younger. Degrees were kind of well sought after, but I think now, it's kind of the norm to go on and do that. So yeah, I've spoken about it on a lot of other things, but I had influences. Like my parents are quite open-minded. They don't, they're really supportive, and they kind of, none of them went to university, so they didn't really expect me to go either if I didn't want to. And I had a really influential teacher at my school that kind of just helped me throughout the process and kind of just gave me that push that I probably needed to apply to a company like Google. So yeah, so we're both now here, and I guess I'll give a bit of insight first to my role and the team that I was in, seeing as you kind of mentioned it, and then we can kind of dive deeper into what is digital marketing, how do we use it within our roles and stuff like that, just to give the listeners a bit of a better insight. But like I said, we all get placed in different teams, and I was placed in a sales team, which initially I was like, why am I in sales? I've applied for digital marketing. But looking back now, I've learned so many transferable skills. I wouldn't take it back. Like, I love the team that I was in, and it was specifically a video and display specialist team. So what we would do was act as resource to almost like sector specific sales teams. So I was aligned to media, which is like broadband, telco, which kind of sound boring, but they're big names. There's like BT and Sky, and also studio, so Disney and Warner Brothers, which were a bit more seasonal, but kind of sprinkled a bit of fun in there as well. So yeah, they were kind of my clients, and we'd just be specialist resources on YouTube campaigns mainly. So that was another exciting thing. I loved YouTube. I had my own channel, and it was just really cool to work kind of behind the scenes on the sales side, like how are ads actually sold. And there's so many different factors, and it's kind of complex, and all depends on the sales objectives, marketing objectives, loads of other factors. And there's a lot of people involved as well. So it's not just Google selling to the brand. There's these people called, which you would have worked with, Jake, but agencies. So I didn't know what agencies were before I kind of, obviously you worked in one before you joined Google, but I'd never heard of them. And I think if you're not in the industry, like they're kind of the people you don't see. They're the behind the scenes men that kind of do all the work. So they kind of help
on the wheel.
Yeah, that you don't see. So yeah, they work really hard, and they kind of plan media and how much money spending on TV and YouTube and whatever, all these different mixes. And also creative agencies, so people who do the adverts and all the kind of videos that you'll see on TV and stuff. So I've had a really mixed experience, and I think it's quite flexible. I'm sure you found the same with an apprenticeship. You can kind of jump in and out of teams. So they were my day-to-day responsibilities, but I had some really cool opportunities because I was interested in creative. I worked with a creative agency internal team that looked after all the partnerships with the creative agencies, and also like an internal innovation team, which kind of figured out strategies for creative processes for big brands like all over different markets and stuff, which was really, really cool. And it's good just to work with these big names that you kind of have always heard of, but never really thought about, and to work with them is just like a whole nother story. But I know that you kind of explained that you worked a lot with search, and that was kind of your main role, but I know you've worked on a lot of internal events too, which I think is exciting for people to hear about. So if you just kind of want to dive a bit deeper into all the different things that you did, because you kind of covered a lot.
Yeah. So I think like Molly was saying, like you don't know what team you're gonna get put in. It's kind of potluck. And I guess, I don't know if this was your assumption, but my assumption was like, all of Google's advertising that they do is like consumer advertising. So, when you see Google adverts on the TV or the new Pixel phone on the YouTube ads or whatever it was, I just assumed that was all that Google did. When you get inside, I think you soon realize that actually a lot of the advertising is business to business. And I think actually probably maybe like 80% of the advertising is that, and only 20% is the consumer advertising. So I thought that was just an interesting note to start on before I get into it. But so a lot of my role is predominantly creating advertising campaigns. So like whether that be videos, podcasts, out of home advertisements, which are like billboards and things like that, for people that work in the advertising industry. So effectively, this is how I explain it to people. I advertise to people in the advertising industry, which is a bit of a mouthful.
You've nailed it.
Yeah. So a lot of the things that we would do is just basically, because like Molly said, she was in a sales team at Google. Sales in Google isn't necessarily actually sales, and sales and marketing at Google are very much kind of intertwined.
Interchangeable,
So,
yeah.
and yeah, and it's very much, you know, the sales and marketing teams work together and create like one big piece of marketing essentially. But yeah, so a lot of my day to day would be, you know, helping the team with strategy and just coming up with a lot of creative ideas. Like I work with like 3, 4, 5 different creative agencies during my time at Google. You know, whether that's like creating sort of graphics and stuff for campaigns, both internally and externally. So although you might not think marketing in Google and actually marketing to other people that work at Google is necessary, like it's a big part of it, because Google's so big and so wide. It's kind of, sometimes you could like, you really need a bomb to explode to be able to get people to hear it. Like, if that's the best way I can explain it. There's so much going on, and you kind of like, you need a bit more than being able to shout yourself. You need something. So yeah, definitely making a lot of graphics and just coming up with creative ideas. And that was a big part of my role. A lot of people don't realize as well in marketing, and especially at Google, project management and process is such a big part of the job. Like, it's not as simple as you might think it is to release an advert or release a poster or whatever it is. Like, it takes a lot of process. So a big part of my role specifically was project management. And like, that was for, you know, you sometimes have loads of different people in different teams working on one project, and I'm like kind of like the core person. They come to you like, oh, what's this update? What's this update? Da, 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 da. And honestly, that was one of the biggest learnings that I had from my entire apprenticeship, just like learning how to stakeholder manage and like manage people and deadlines for, you know, these are like multi-million £, at some point, you know, like campaigns that are getting ran. And I'm just sat here like this like 20, 21-year-old like handling, you know what I mean? It just felt a bit, it is a bit surreal when you think about it.
Yeah, definitely. I think off the back of that as well, that was a massive thing for me. I'd never seen like money in a company before, and going into Google, it's just like, is this even real? Are people actually just exchanging money like this? Because I know one of my biggest achievements that I just think is quite interesting for people to hear, because if I was listening to this at 16 to 18, what I've done now, like I've sold new business pitches and kind of won Google, essentially £380,000, and to me that's huge amount of money. And you know, to other people that can be quite little, like within the team that was kind of like a middle figure, but as a 19-year-old to say I've done that, it's quite a nice tangible thing to come away with and say I did that, and that was me, and that was completely independent, like I ran that kind of pitch, I guess. So yeah, I think it's really nice to come away with things like that and be able to say I definitely learned how to do that. And yeah, it's just great to build your CV up as well. And I guess moving on to kind of biggest takeaways, because you kind of alluded to it there. I think the thing I've learned the most is echoing your point around stakeholder management and people. So not only just the people that I've met, the culture at Google was amazing. And yeah, the people that I've met and the connections that I'll take on with me throughout my career is kind of invaluable, but also just how to manage people and how to read a room. So I find it really interesting to just sit back and observe, how do people work within a team? And when I was pitching, you'd have different stakeholders in a room. So you'd have a really senior person, then you'd have the agency, the client, and then the Google people, and all these different people. And they'd all act really different. They all make decisions in different ways. And you know, you have to know how to deliver information so that they can take it on board in the way that they like to. And so, you know, it's actually influential. And yeah, it's a really interesting piece for me that I think I've learned so much about, and I think will benefit me going forward. But what about you? What's kind of like been the biggest takeaway from your apprenticeship?
Yeah, I think there's, you know, there's so many I could keep going on and list it, but I think for people listening, I think, you know, especially if you're not doing an apprenticeship before, or you're looking into it, or you're looking at like going into like a big corporate company, so, you know, something like a Google or an Amazon or Instagram, Facebook, whatever it might be, like it's really a people game. Like you said, it really is. And when we're saying like build connections and, you know, have these relationships, that doesn't mean, you know, text this like senior person every single night, you know, and things like that. It's just, you know, it's, you know, having a few conversations maybe every couple of months. And you don't have to constantly be on these people. It's just like, and you build relationships naturally anyway when you start working and things like that. and it's being completely transparent. Like you're gonna like sort of be drawn to some people more than other people in the workplace, and that might not necessarily be a good thing, because the other people might be able to get you somewhere that this person can't. So you know, it's hard to give great advice there, because it's kind of a case by case scenario. But I think, yeah, it's kind of like when you get into a business like a big corporate company and you start in a junior role, networking is like the key thing. But I'd say another big takeaway is just like realizing, you know, about impact. I think, you know, as a young person, like the one big thing that you want to do is have like crazy impact, isn't it? And I realized that actually you have to start off small and build up. You can't have this massive, crazy, explosive impact straight away.
I feel like when we all
possible.
came in, as a group, we were like, oh my God, this is what my team's doing. I've got this great idea about this. And we were all just so excited to kind of get going. And like you said, make a big impact in the team. And then I think as you settle in after a few months, you're like, okay, you just start to figure out how things work and the structure and how to actually improve things and what's important and what's not.
Yeah, I'd say you've just got to, I'd say my key thing there would be just like set expectation, like don't overwhelm yourself with trying to be the next like Bill Gates or Zuckerberg, you know, like, you know, because it can be a bit, I mean, I know for me at least, I was like thinking I was gonna do all this like crazy mad things to take, and then you realize there's actually process to all this, and you know, even wanting to do a simple thing sometimes it takes a little bit. So just give yourself a break if you're not the next Zuckerberg. Like, don't worry. It's okay.
It takes time.
It takes time.
Yeah, massively. And I think as well, just to finish off on, you mentioned about networking within the company, but I think what a great thing about the Google Apprenticeship is, because there's such a large intake, there was about 23 of us. And I think we've come away such a strong network, and whatever we go on to do next, some of you are going on to, you know, stay at Google in Dublin, like Jake. And some of us are going elsewhere to other companies like creative agencies, Sky, and all these different household names. And I think I think it's a really cool thing to always be able to stay in touch. And we always say in 5 years, like, I wonder where we'll all be, and I'm sure we'll still be in touch, and you know, we'll have great connections. We've come away with great connections now, and if you think in 5 years, imagine who we'll know. It's just crazy. But I guess I just realized we haven't really said what we're going on to do next, although we've completed the apprenticeship. You just want to say, because we both secured roles, luckily, in this weird pandemic, but what are you going on to do, Jake?
So like Molly just said, that I'm kind of starting this new role at Google in the Dublin office, although I don't think anyone's going to be moving to Dublin anytime soon with obviously the situation. And it's kind of like a sale, like we were joking about earlier, it's a sales role mixed with a technical role, but it's basically marketing. So that just sounds crazy in itself, just saying it. But it's going to be working with a lot of like small and medium businesses, and like just helping them with their Google ads, and you know, like other miscellaneous Google products, like, you know, like the YouTube ads as well, but predominantly focused on like selling Google search and just helping these small businesses build up. Because obviously over the last year, like you just said there, like everyone's been going online as well. So what a great time to start this job. Like there's loads of new clients, like really dig my feet in deep.
Yeah, and I think it'll be an interesting role. Like you said, there'll be way more businesses that have transferred to online now. So it'll be a really interesting challenge. And I think it's really cool. And contrasting with what I'm doing, it's probably quite different to what you're going on to do. But like I mentioned earlier, I'm really interested in creative and strategy behind advertising and stuff like that. So I've moved into a creative agency working on the Cadbury's account, which is really, really cool. Not where I thought I'd end up, because I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do coming into Google. But I think it's just a nice, it kind of shows really nicely how we've kind of done the same qualification in different teams, and we've kind of ended up in two separate directions, but it just kind of proves that an apprenticeship is for everyone, I think.
Yeah, definitely, 100%. Like if you're 50-50 about it, I'd say just go and try. Like that's all you can do, you know. And another thing I was just thinking there, you just kind of made me think, like saying how our apprenticeship was only like 15 months. Like, don't underestimate how far you can get in a single year. Like honestly, like I never thought that I would be, you know, securing a full-time job at the end of this, you know, doing doing
Yeah.
a crazy new role. So Molly's obviously role is like super amazing. She's working in this creative agency with like Cadbury's and stuff. That's just going to be crazy. But don't underestimate what you can like achieve and where you can get in 1 year. And I think that's like another big takeaway for me.
Yeah, and that's, I think, just to finish on, I think if you consider an apprenticeship, or if you know you're going to start one, just back yourself from day one. Like, you've just got to have so much, you know, you will have times where you'll doubt yourself, but have the confidence, like you're just as capable as everyone else. So yeah, I think that's a really nice mindset to have as an apprentice. And I think it's a habit that you kind of build up that will last throughout your whole career. So thank you so much, Jake, for coming on. I think the conversation's been really good, and I hope that people listening have taken away some insightful bits of advice, and I think your experience has been really interesting to hear about. So thank you very much.
Thank you for having me on, Molly, and I hope, like I say, I hope everybody took a little bit of something from myself, and yeah, and I look forward to seeing what we do next.
Yeah, thanks, Jake. If you did enjoy the episode, please leave a review on Apple Podcasts and share with any friends or family that you think might find this useful. There are so many other episodes with incredible guests, so don't forget to check those out. Follow us on Instagram and TikTok at Your Future Forward, where we share loads of different career advice and tips to help you navigate this working world. Thanks again for listening to this episode, and I really hope you enjoyed it.